Okay, guys, welcome and thank you to all of you for joining us this morning. I'm Michelle Naidoo, and I am the Operations and Transformation Director at LexisNexis, and I also serve as an employee trustee on our share trust. LexisNexis and the Law Society of South Africa are pleased to be hosting yet another webinar in our State of the Legal Industry series, which is based on insights contained in the Legal Tech Report. This is an important body of research compiled with the aim of contributing towards the development of the legal profession using critical data and insights to shape the way forward. If you haven't yet gotten your hands on a copy of the report, you can find the download link in the chat box throughout the session. LexisNexis will also send you a copy of the report after the webinar. The findings of the report looks at quite a few facets: the impact of COVID-19, the approach to technology within the profession, networking, the marketing shifts, and much, much more. I'm very excited about today's topic. It's not only a topic that sits very close to my heart, but it also sits under my portfolio at LexisNexis. And in the roles that we play in organizations, we get to change the society. We also get to shift the transition in the industry, but also in society in terms of what are the perceptions. BE and gender empowerment are topics that are not only very close to my heart, but it's also a core pillar of the LexisNexis values. Today, we'll be looking at the realities of gender and race transformation in the legal sector. Racial and gender inclusivity are vital focus areas for companies, yet women remain in the minority in this profession, and gender transformation is moving at a very slow pace. In addition, while fully white-owned firms have shown a decline over the past 23 years, they remain the stronghold of small firms in the country. And this is where BE is very important, because on that BE scorecard, under the procurement element, there is a field that actually talks to the EMEs and the SMEs in the industry that we get to play a role and contribute towards in the larger corporates. Today, I would like to introduce our experts for this morning who will help us unpack how we can effectively foster an environment of inclusivity. Please welcome Nomahlubi Khwinana. She is a co-founder of the firm Mtimkulu Khwinana Attorneys, which is a Black-owned firm based in Mapulkwane in north of Pretoria, with extensive experience in the full spectrum of commercial legal work and property-related legal work. BE and women's empowerment are critical focus areas for the firm. Nomahlubi is also a member of the LSSA's Women's Task Team, which was established late in 2016 to address some of the challenges that women legal practitioners face in the legal profession. We're also joined by Michelle Naidoo, a partner at Mooney Ford Attorneys and a panelist at Equitable Dispute Resolution Services. She has specialized in employment and labor law, employment equity, and compliance. For the past 19 years, she represents clients at the CCMA, bargaining councils, labor court, and is regularly appointed as an independent chairperson by corporate clients and referring law firms nationally. Welcome to you both. I'll invite our attendees to please participate in the questions using the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. We'll also get through those questions later on in the program. For now, let's get started. Nomahlubi, you're a member of the Women's Task Team within the LSSA. Who is represented on this task team and what specifically is its mandate? Nomahlubi, you unmute. Okay, let's move on to Michelle.
Yes, Ravana.
Okay. When LexisNexis and the LSSA measured ownership by gender in 2016, 53% of firms were owned by men, 20% were fully female, and 27% had mixed ownership. 5 years on, and the needle has shown some encouraging movement in 40% of firms being male-owned, 27% now fully female-owned, and 26% with mixed ownership. Another significant finding shows that fully white-owned firms have shown a decline over the past 23 years, yet they remain the stronghold of small firms. In the 2021-2022 report, the figures were 49% of firms fully white-owned and 19% fully black-owned. Michelle, what's your thoughts here as a female legal profession of color? What do you believe are some of the barriers to transformation in this field?
Ravona, it's going to be a theme I'm going to punch throughout this webinar. And, you know, the biggest barrier is the lack of diversity in the boardroom. So if you don't change what your boardroom looks like, you're never going to make any progress. So, you know, the issue of barriers is such a big subject, but if I can simplify it, it really comes down to, you're asking me why the picture looks like that. I see it in just two reasons I'll give you. I'll narrow it down for you. One is an internal barrier. So the internal barrier I'm talking about is, whilst law firms have their advertising procedures, you know, all in order, they're marketing themselves well in terms of saying, oh, here's the available positions, etc. However, the decision making happens in the boardroom. And at the end of the day, if you're not going to have a diversified boardroom, then the decisions that are going to come are going to be the same decisions, which are historical decisions. Luckily for us, Mooney Ford Attorneys, we've so progressive in that regard, and it all comes down to our managing partner taking a strategic, bold decision 2 years ago that this boardroom that I'm sitting in right now needs to change and diversify. For example, with us, we have 50% representation of female partners and 50% Black representation in this boardroom. And because of that, our decision-making is completely different from what you would see in a boardroom that is not diversified. The external barrier, Ravona, it's simple. It's the lack of pressure on corporates to genuinely comply or to genuinely attempt to meet BEE objectives. Now, when I say BEE objectives, I'm talking about the full basket of BEE criteria, not only ownership. So, you know, that's really my take on that question that you've asked.
Thank you, Michelle. Nomahlubi, are you back with us? Yes, okay. Nomahlubi, back to your question. You're a member of the Women's Task Team with the LSSA. Who is represented on this task team, and what specifically is its mandate? Nomahlubi, you're on mute. There we go.
My network is not doing very well, Rivonia, but thank you. Okay. I will try and answer you. So the task team comprises of the independent legal practitioners, the Black Lawyers Association, and NADEL, and of course the staff of the Law Society of South Africa. And the objectives that the task team is looking at are in relation to women. I've got people around me that are making noise. Please go away. So the objectives of the task team are to forge relations in
Nomahlubi. Okay, we've lost Nomahlubi. Michelle, let's continue. If I had to ask you a question, if the corporate South Africa was open to the issues of transformation, diversity, and inclusion, what would your responses be?
Ravona, I'm in the fortunate position to say an absolute yes. And that's purely because of where I'm sitting today. Like I said, in our law firm, we have a 50% representation of female partners, which is phenomenal, given the stats that you've referred to earlier in this webinar. And I want to give you some other examples as to why I'm saying absolutely a strong yes. Let me start with the judiciary. I mean, South Africa has welcomed the appointment of a female deputy chief justice. I mean, that's a massive stride. Justice Meyer is also the president of the Supreme Court of Appeal. So that's what's happening on the judiciary's front. But let's also look at corporates. Look at yourselves. LexisNexis has a female CEO. LexisNexis has a HR director, which is female. That is a prime example of the appetite for female leaders now, and the recognition of the diversity that leadership brings. And I'll just give you two more which stand out to me. In the financial sector, we got Investec, the UK division of Investec. They've recently appointed Barbara Ann King as their global head of people and organization. We've got cellular companies. MTN Group has appointed three female CEOs to run its operations within the African continent. An accounting firm, Deloitte, also is following the lead with its first Black female CEO. So it's been a tremendous 12 months. And what's amazing is that these women have, grabbed the opportunity and are flying their flags very high. So yes, I strongly believe that corporate South Africa is ready, and they're showing how ready they are as it stands.
And Michelle, it's interesting you say that, because it's important also for when these progressions take place, you also don't leave anybody behind, because it's about that opportunity that you create for somebody. Somebody believed in you and you are there. Therefore, you need to also pay that forward in the industry and in our roles as sitting in the boardroom, performing this function through this process. So thank you for that, Michelle. Now, Nomahlubi, are you back with us? Yes. Unmute.
I hope we don't disappoint again.
Okay, you want to go back to the original question about the LSSA work task team and the representation of the task team and what is its specific mandate?
Yeah, so its mandate basically it looks at forging relationships with different organizations that would be able to benefit our women, but of course we also look at the disadvantage at large. But our focus really is on women, for the simple reason that we've been sidelined as women insofar as briefing patterns are concerned. I mean, the type of work that we are exposed to, that niche, part of the law that we are unable to tap into. And as a result, we thought, let's make sure that those areas are made available. So we said, where do we start? I mean, surely empowerment then becomes the major one. Training of women in those untapped areas. And we went as far as having MOUs created with organizations such as NERSA. At some point, we also were engaged with VANS, that they run a mentoring program. We have now been engaging with IAW. It's an international African training company. It actually looks at training for women, but we're still busy talking to them. So basically what we're doing is we are saying, let's make sure that whilst we say we are sidelined, but at the same time, we are experiencing those fields that when we are called upon to give such skills, that we do have those skills. So we're just making sure that everyone, has got an equal footing insofar as the law is concerned. And that becomes a challenge, especially when you look at funding. And that is why we went as far as going with SACITA as well. We've got an MOU with SACITA where they give us funding in order to make sure that we get more women into the profession. But it's not just women, as I said, but we get them trained, and also we make sure that when they are trained, then they are able to stay in the profession, because remember, it doesn't have to get people in there, and yet they don't really have money to pay the staff that they bring on board. So basically what our concern mostly is training, mentorship, and going to those areas that we think we have been previously disadvantaged. And of course, we would want to see ourselves talking to even the government as well, the big law firms. At some point, we had what we call a placement, where these big law firms, they would take on some of our candidates, and then they just give them an experience insofar as those areas that maybe mostly people that are in those areas are, those that one can call advantaged, then they are experiencing those fields. So when that happens, it assists us to at least bridge the gap. So as far as we are concerned, with the work that we are doing, we think that we are getting there, but a lot still is.
Okay, we've lost Nomahlubi again. Michelle, back to you. What are some of the positive outcomes that organizations are able to deliver when they focus on having broader diversity in the workplace?
I can only speak from my experience, and I would say that diversity brings a simple but complex principle of variety into an organization. And variety, the benefit of variety in any company is fresh, new, different perspectives, and fresh, new, different business opportunities being created. And that's what business is all about. It's about exploring where are the new opportunities, how do we get to these opportunities. And with new ideas that you develop, it automatically increases your reach in terms of a customer base. Now, that is the bottom line, is we always want to grow our businesses. And when you have an organization that's diverse, automatically the end result, which is the reach or the pool of your customers, will automatically grow. So this is not just something that you're doing as an organization because it's the right thing to do in South Africa because of the past from where we come. But it's also the right commercial decision to make, So this is what ExCos need to realize, and CEOs need to come to terms with, is the diversity does impact on the bottom line in terms of the commercial aims of the business.
And that's so true, Michelle, because often we get so focused in our statements of BEE and employment equity and the compliance factors of it. But it actually does impact the bottom line and the revenue, and most importantly, the customers that we have, because like you said, the fresh new ideas that come to the table, it's the way in which we communicate as well to our customers. There's a different feel to how we actually communicate with people around us, not necessarily just our customers. Even the way we engage with our employees is very key to how we drive that bottom line in making those decisions around gender empowerment and
yes, and like I said earlier when we started, if there's any point I want to drive today, it's about tackling the diversity at boardroom level. So I firmly believe that organizations should be working from the top level, filtering the diversity and inclusion strategies from top to bottom, and not the other way around. So that's what we've done in our firm, is we've done it from top and it's filtering down in a natural way. Another important point is when we, just before I forget, when you're talking about, earlier we spoke of barriers, etc. The question you've just raised about a positive outcome regarding diversity, you've just touched on a very important thing. It's about the communication, the way you're speaking to your customer, the way people relate to each other. Now, think about it. As your boardroom changes and you're getting different cultures in your boardroom, remember that the customer has a certain language. No, I'm not talking about English Afrikaans. I'm saying there's a manner in which the customer wants a service provider to relate to them. And you're only going to reach a greater pool of customers if your workforce is diverse and has the ability to communicate easily with your customer. So I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear, but it's important that that rapport, I understand very clearly that there's some clients that I will never have that kind of rapport similar to what I have with certain of my other clients, where it's a casual. So you will choose, for example, as a head of operations, it's natural that you will select service providers that you feel comfortable with.
absolutely.
And that is important. Let's not underestimate that. Someone that you can speak the way you are naturally inclined to. So let's not forget, as business leaders, that type of relationship does have a significant impact on the bottom line as well.
Agreed. And there's different types of people. And I like what you say is that be intentional about your strategies at the top level, because that's what brings about change, is the intention that we bring about. Thank you, Michelle. Nomahlubi, let's try it again. Our next question for you is, what do you believe are the reasons for the unequal representation? Unmute. Nomahlubi, we cannot hear you.
You cannot hear me?
Now we can. Now we can.
Okay. All right. Now I've had to change the network. So exactly what Michelle is talking to now becomes a big of a problem. I mean, if people are going to be choosy, it definitely does affect us. But, as women, what we have realized is that obviously the first thing is that maybe you're not schooled in that particular field that your client has approached you to assist in, that becomes a problem. The lack of experience, the lack of skill, that is a problem. And that is why I said, as LSSA Women Task Team, we are looking into that. The fact that maybe you do not have those leadership skills, amongst others, that's our objective. We're looking at training, and this is what we have done in the past, to make sure that our women are trained in order to be able to lead. And obviously, we're looking at putting them in those boards. And if we don't train them to be able to go and sit in those boardrooms and occupy that space effectively and efficiently, then obviously we will have failed as the Women Task Team. So we look at that as well. So, you know, it's a number of things that really seriously disadvantage us. The language is still a barrier. Yes, you know, it is so that we are Africans, and our first language is definitely not English or Afrikaans. And that can become a serious of a challenge, because one has to pen on paper a document that has been discussed with client. And sometimes it does not come out as it has been discussed. And that can become a challenge for one, especially when it comes to litigation matters, because, you know, when it has to be interpreted, then it turns out that it means something else and not exactly what it was discussed. That becomes a challenge. And so, and truth is that when we go into different areas of the law, you find that there's still very few Black practitioners, whether even male, you know, there's still a lack there. So we need to infiltrate those spaces. But how can we do that other than to make sure that the firms that have been advantaged, they are able to give us the space, you know, not necessarily by hiring our women and putting them in there as part of their staff, but instead, you know, give them that opportunity in their respective firms. So they come in as a firm to come and not only to learn, but also make some money. You know, it's important for them that they are empowered in that regard. So it becomes important for them to own what they're doing. You know, we have seen areas like your insolvency law. You find that people, as much as they are called insolvency practitioners, but they're clueless. Why? Because somebody else does the work right there at the top, and they just come in and they sign documents. So those are the gaps that we want to make sure that they are bridged, and we make sure that we wipe away, you know, that fronting, because it's still there, but you know, in a very diplomatic way. So we need to make sure that they come in and for real, you know, they're really clued up in what they're doing. They know that, you know, being an insolvency practitioner, it means exactly that. Because you find that they're making so much money, but if you were to say, run with this matter, they can't, you know. So those are the challenges that we're looking at. And of course, the fact that women, we are still marginalized insofar as just being a woman. You know, the fact that you still want to go and raise your children. You want to be a mother at some point, but at the same time, you must go into a space that requires you to work around the clock. You can't, because at some point you need to knock off. Now, being a mother, being a legal practitioner, sometimes becomes very difficult. You know, just now I was talking to some of my colleagues that are acting. It's a problem when you are acting as a judge and then you want to suddenly raise a child. I mean, a deputy chief justice designate, they still call her Maya. She says that, you know, she was the first judge to become pregnant. You know, and they did not know what to do with her at that point. So you can imagine now you're a single practitioner in your firm, and then you still want to have children. What happens to your business at that time? Those are some of the things that we need to make sure that we've got correct policies that are working for their situation. Yeah, thank you, Rivonia.
Yeah, that's very important what you said, Nomahlubi. I mean, it affects all of us in this work world. I mean, it's such a balancing act that you refer to, and you need to actually be strong enough to be non-apologetic for raising a child and taking your child to the doctor or asking for time off. It's so important, but it's something that we need to also stand with each other and support each other when these things do happen. You know, Nomahlubi, I need to run out. Can you cover for me? And that's okay, kind of thing, you know. And that's where I find that the support structures are key. And like you're saying, the policies that support this. Because as an organization, even at LexisNexis, I mean, Michelle mentioned our female CEO. Our maternity leave policy is now extended. You know, we now have paternity leave as part of our leave provision. So this is very important factors that actually help the organization to actually grow with diversity and transformation.
Yeah, and just one other thing that I need to mention, you know, the fact that unfortunately women, because of our beauty, you know, we carry a certain presence, and that's us women. And some see us as sexual objects, and that also, we need to be protected against that. You know, and I must say, I don't know whether it's a good thing or one could say it's a bad thing, but judges are expected to rope when they go and meet their male counterparts or their male colleagues in order to discuss, or even when they go to the tea room, they still rope. Some of those things, you know, I'm not sure whether it really assists us insofar as our minds are concerned, but then what does it say? I mean, you're still going to have to walk into court before you rope, especially as a legal practitioner. So what then? What happens at that time? So those are some of the things that we really need to help a lot of people to change when they look at women. We are equals, we say. Thank you.
Michelle, you were saying?
Yeah, I also want to, it's just such important points have just been brought up. You know, to share that back in 2003, I was also the first associate in my law firm, Danae's Rates at the time, to be pregnant. I was married for about 4 years. It wasn't even planned, but they didn't know what to do with me. It was a complete, they had no plan of action. And yeah, thankfully lots of things have changed since that point, but especially with companies paying attention to policies, etc. Because at that time, in 2003, I was a breadwinner in my family, and my company didn't have a policy, and I had to take maternity leave unpaid. You know, one can just imagine the hardships that women have to face all over the world, actually, not just this country, for doing something which is absolutely natural, and then almost being penalized for it or made to feel guilty for it. And one of the ways corporates can address this in a positive manner, apart from having policies and providing the financial assistance, is what Nomahlubi has touched on, which is critical game changer for a woman, is flexibility. You give a woman flexibility in terms of her working hours, the job is going to get done. You got no doubt about that. But this mentality, particularly in the legal profession, that if you go home in the daytime, you frowned at. I know I've spent 12 years in a very large corporate law firm. And if I was going to leave work at 6 p.m., you would get the comment, why are you leaving half a day? At 6 p.m. already in the night. So in the legal profession, the mentality needs to change regarding the need to be more flexible, that you don't have to clock in and out of an office 8 o'clock and leave at 8 p.m. in order to get acknowledged for your work. So that's just the 2 cents I wanted to add to as a response.
Thanks, Michelle and Nomahlubi. And I think now that, you know, the impact of COVID and the hybrid working situation that we all find ourselves in actually promotes that flexibility that we have now, insofar as of being at home, working from home, having the flexibility of starting and finishing as long as the outcome is results-based. So that's very good points that you both raised. Thank you. So Nomahlubi, back to you on what are some of the programs that the LSSA Women's Task Team have in place to advance the progression of women in the legal field? Nomahlubi, unmutes.
Okay, thank you. So Rivonia, the first one that, you know, I would say we are doing very well. It has been consistent over the years. That is with regard to the leadership program that has been going on, where we make sure that, you know, a number of women are trained insofar as leadership course is concerned. And so they do acquire a certificate with that type of training. And I'm sure they're able to then occupy spaces that obviously they did not get the training at the law school, you know, for. So, you know, that's one item that one can say we are definitely successful in that regard. So we did have 2 significant leadership programs that were held in Cape Town and Durban over the years. Maybe because of COVID, then, you know, we had problems here and there. Then we also have, you know, our SITA program for candidates, candidate attorneys. So we have sourced funding from SITA. So basically what happens is at least our legal practitioners can apply and get 3 candidate attorneys paid for by SITA, now through the LSSA. You know, the red tape that goes with SITA funding. So we are trying to make sure that we alleviate them of those, you know, challenges that they would have to meet. But of course, not to say that we don't make sure that they still comply. So we still make sure that they do comply. And we also have, you know, the training that goes on from time to time through LEAD. So LEAD offers a number of programs, you know, that are helping all those legal practitioners to ensure that they keep themselves abreast of the changes that are there insofar as the law is concerned. And we have seen that a lot are registering from time to time, and that is really helpful for them. But over and above that, we've got our Direbus magazine, where we share a number of articles in that in that magazine. Our practitioners do write, our editors do write there, and that is really there. It's helping. But also when you go to our website, you realize that there are a number of articles that are being shared there. So we alert our practitioners to those articles because they refer to the recently, amended legislature, as well as when there's legislature that needs to be amended and comments are required. So we encourage our legal practitioners to also get involved in same. So it is a number of things that are out there, but most importantly, we're saying to our women, please do read, because again, we can post all these things, we can make all this information available, but when they don't read, then unfortunately they're going to miss that information. But that's us, that's what we're trying to do. So what we have done is we've got a number of associations in all provinces where legal practitioners can then join. So whether they join through BLA, NADEL, or the independent bodies, then they become part of that association. So everybody is represented there. So there's meaningful participation where that is concerned. So that is helping us a lot. in making sure that the information, again, it is out there for our legal practitioners to be schooled in. Thank you, everybody.
And Nomahlubi, the question that I have around accessing this content, because not everybody has access to it. What are your platforms that we can get access to this availability of all of the source material that you're referring to? Is it via a website? Do you get it at university? Is it only when you start practicing? How can we access it at an early start so that, you know, we know exactly what is available to us as legal practitioners?
Yes, so all this information, it is on our website. So there's the Law Society of South Africa website. It is there. If you also have access to the Rebus is now published, you know, in two parts. We've got the digital one, and we also have, you know, the hard copy. So if you get hold of any of the two, that information is right there. We've been meaning to have a YouTube channel so that the information can be shared, but I think it's something that we're still working on. We should get there at some point, you know. But for now, you know, even if you access it through Facebook, you'll be able to find your way into the LSSA website or, you know, the Rebus. So that information is shared widely for anyone to be able to have access there too. And I must just mention that through the Attorneys Development Fund, the other arrangement we have with them is to assist in so far as paying for the PMT. You know, it has been so sad to see how many legal practitioners we have to strike from the roll because they could not pay for the PMT, so the practice management training course. And, you know, some are not even able to pass it. And these are some of the areas that we are looking into. So you will recall that I said it's BLA and NADEL, and even through BLA, there's trainings through NADEL, and we do also for even candidate attorneys. So both organizations do these trainings for candidate attorneys to prepare them for their exams, you know, because we want to make sure that more come into the field. Thank you, Rivonia.
Perfect, thank you. So this is for both of you, Nomahlubi and Michelle. At your respective firms, how do you overcome some of the challenges in the market when competing with larger organizations in the industry?
I think let me go first on that one. But the response is not connected to excuse me, a race issue or a gender issue. I'm talking more on the broader challenges in the market and competition. The way I deal with it is an emphasis on specialization. The formula is a magical one when you can operate in a firm where you have different specialists or industry leaders that are the go-to people. So if you're a specialist, it doesn't matter what banner you have behind you. It doesn't matter how large your organization is or how small. You will still have the edge over competitors, large or small, because you sought after. You become a commodity, an asset to your clients. Your clients will look for you. So I don't think in the legal profession the formula of generalists work anymore from a profitability point of view. Back in the day, when I say generalist, you go to one lawyer who can do everything under the sun for you, sue and do labor law and competition and everything. We're moving now in the times of specialization. That's what clients want. And I don't think they want a specialist, and they want their work in a quick period of time. The world is very fast. So if you can have those two things, if you can be there for your clients anytime, You've got to be there. You've got to be their partner all the time, and you've got to be the specialist. That's a winning formula, and that's how you get the edge.
And it's important what you're saying, the transformation, because now that we work in this hybrid environment with no set time of work, and coming from an HR space, I can assure you that the specialist is what we look for from an industry specialist perspective. It's about somebody that knows employment equity, because we have generalists as in the HR space, as in human resources business partners. So we look as an organization, just in that facet, in that area of expertise, we look for those specialized skills when we are calling out, whether it is employment equity, whether it's BE, whether it's labor law. We want somebody coming, give us a solution, and that's it. And then we run with our day-to-day operations from that point onwards. Nomahlubi, your side?
Yeah, the truth, Ravona, is that with regard to small firms, sometimes it becomes very difficult to say that you are specializing. And also where you are placed sometimes forces you to look at other areas. But what I've done for my firm is try to retain the candidate attorneys that I have trained, especially after realizing that what is it that they've got an interest in. So knowing that one maybe has an interest in administration of estates, assist, because then you know that you can have a department that one can say it is for this particular person who's going to look at it and make sure that he or she excels in that particular area. And also, if you've got somebody who's also good at maybe the family law, then again, you make sure that, they look at it in a broad spectrum. Not only do they look at divorce matters, but they should also be able to look at the maintenance and look at the Children's Act and, everything that relates thereto. So if you do it in that fashion, it does work, because then you've got a number of skills that you can tap into and be able to then to compete, and be able to occupy that space, in its entirety. Because again, you don't want to chase anyone your way, don't want to refer them, but you want to make sure that you retain all of them that come to you. So the cooperatives also, we have realized that they really work for us, or maybe even partnerships, So when one looks at, the diversity insofar as the skills and also maybe the type of firms that you can maybe merge with in order to still retain the work, it has really helped, especially for previously disadvantaged firms and previously disadvantaged practitioners like myself. And of course, what Michelle is talking to is true, because what I've seen is with our profession, our work is a word of mouth, So every client will refer another to you simply because you gave them the best service. And if you finalize it quickly, you're sure to get 10 more coming with a client, So that has really worked wonders. It really does help. And, employing young people has become such a benefit, I must tell you, because then they are on Facebook, they advertise, and then suddenly you hear they got a client through Facebook. You're like, what? Because he posted himself at court, just that. And then they said, no, can you represent me? And then he'd say, no, come to the office and consult. Then the next thing, they've got clients. So it has become such a challenging space. But I'm telling you, being the as we call ourselves, the BBEs, we're making it out there because we are also schooled in those fields, and we are making sure that we occupy those spaces, whether it's through WhatsApp or whether it's Twitter or Facebook. You're also out there, and then as you get into those spaces, and just people know that you are there, then they want to come and see if indeed you can do what what it is said you do. But word of mouth for me, it has been really the best to occupy the space over the years, and it is really working wonders. And again, just to be spoken about in a good way, it really helps, And yeah, as difficult as it is sometimes with the mood swings of women, but you know what? We're making it,
So true, so true. And that's important. And I think, the BE compliance element also helps with that factor. So you've got the social reach in terms of social media and reaching far and wide, but you've also got that element within the BE scorecard that compels organizations now to use Black female-owned organizations, EMEs that are Black-owned, SMEs that are Black-owned, which helps the small organizations to get a footing in the door, because you have to. And then there's some advantageousness in terms of also, if you pay them within, because you're a small organization, if you pay them within the first 7 days of invoice, you get bonus points for that. So all of those policies definitely help the small businesses, and some of the strategies that will help the small businesses come up. So Nomahlubi and Michelle, this has been a wonderful and robust discussion, which I intensely enjoyed. Thank you for engaging with us today. In closing, tell us, what would be your top 3 tips for the organizations to shift the needle when it comes to transformation, not just in the legal sector, but the broader corporate workplace as a whole?
I'll go first on that one, because it's kind of how I conduct my day-to-day operations. The first thing is mentorship. It is absolutely key. I feel very strongly about that because I never had that in my early years. I didn't have someone to go to mentor me on various challenges that we were up against as women in the legal field. We're talking now 2003 to around 2008 period, which was the early years of my career. So mentorship, I am very big on. That's professional mentoring, as well as providing some sort of emotional support mentoring for young female lawyers that we have in our firm. The second thing is skills development. I learn every day. I've been practicing for 20 years, but I still carry my rule book around. If I'm appearing at the labor court, I still have my rule book with me, or the CCMA. Skills development, developing your expertise and knowledge is absolutely key. Whether it's external, you can also do it in non-cost way by just simply reading. For example, a good cost-free way to develop your skills as a lawyer is available on the Department of Justice website. You have the labor courts website, which has case law, that's freely available, and government websites that have other material which is available. So skills development, very key. And then lastly, in a tongue-in-cheek fashion, I'll say, hire more women. Tongue-in-cheek.
Thank you, Michelle. Nomahlubi.
Well, thank you so much, Rivonia, for the question. For me, the first one is I always tell people, and when I do my admission, and that's what I tell the candidates when they say I must give them a speech. I say I go by the 3 Ps, you know. I mean, not 3 Ps, 5 Ps, sorry. And it says proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if you are always prepared, you're on the go, you know how to navigate your way around anything that you come across, you cannot go wrong. You know, even if somebody says something that you might not, you know, be knowledgeable about, it can never throw you off. So you take those, and every day you make sure that you do not show up unless you are prepared. You know, then you can't go wrong. That's the first one. And of course, what informs those 5 Ps? Like Michelle has already said, for me, training, everyday training, you know, and training will not really mean going into a structured place to go and be trained. No, it doesn't have to be that way. You train yourself every day of your life. And being a lawyer, you know, my daughter is studying law and she likes to watch TV and always go, you can't be a lawyer. Watching TV every day. I always tell her, hey, you are in trouble. You have to read some more, because you can never be too old to learn. With my gray hair, I read every day. And my professional assistant, who has just become my professional assistant, was my candidate attorney. He's every day asking me a question about the law. And I always say to him, no, man, you're making me a moving library. Why aren't you Googling? Because I tell him, Google is so wonderful these days. You put anything there, it will tell you where to go and what to read and so forth. So yeah, for me, so you're never too old to read. You just need to read and read some more, and you won't miss any of those things that are coming up every day, because the law evolves. You know, you find yourself quoting a law of yesterday, and, you know, it just changed that morning. So yeah, so you need to be versatile. You must know how to navigate your way around this profession. And I love what Michelle said, and that's me, and that's definitely how I've been doing it, because I mean, similarly with me, I've never really been mentored by anyone, but I'm trying to mentor a lot of people around me, and I'm always available. And I really love WhatsApp, because I say to them, if we can't talk over the phone, just send me a message. I will be able to say something to you. But you know, when COVID happened, a lot of people closed their practices. They lost their footing in the space, and we found a lot of people losing their lives. And so what Michelle has just referred to with this emotional support, we found that with mentoring, we cannot look at just the law, and we realized that in fact it encompasses both, and that is why we go not just tell you about what the law says, but we want to know that how are you doing, you know? Yeah. And of course, having attended the Vance mentorship training, what they also tell you is that don't try and be a psychologist at it, but you know, there are ways and means of how to navigate your way around that question. Yeah, thank you so much, Bona.
Thank you, Nomahlubi and Michelle. We're at the top of the hour. We're actually 1 minute over. I just want to thank you both so much for your insights. This was quite an informative conversation with deep insights. I hope our attendees actually enjoyed it. And I'd also like to express sincere gratitude to the LSSA for its partnership with LexisNexis on this important research and exercises. We do have 2 questions, Geraldine. We will actually respond to you with a formal response by email. Thank you for the time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye. Bye.